Hello, Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Hello all of you. I hope you are doing fine and well at home or anywhere you are. You're watching Didik TV KPM with me, Syafiqah Farahin. And today we are going to go for our slot Pentaksiran Bilik Darjah or PBD, or as we know in English, it's classroom-based assessment. Now for today, we are going to focus on classroom-based assessment for Bahasa Inggeris for Sekolah Rendah. But before that, as usual, let me give a bit of an introduction. For PBD or classroom-based assessment, this is a guide for parents to know more or teachers to know how to assess pupils at school to give a better guidance to guide them in terms of pupils' strength and also weaknesses. But before we get on to that, let's first take a look at the teacher's profile for today. Alright, there you have it. Our teacher here is now in the studio with me, who is teacher Ching, Jyie or Miss Jyie. Hi Miss Jyie, how are you?
Hi Syafiqah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great and you're looking very lovely today.
Thank you, you too.
Yes, thanks as well. And I'm pretty sure you all are excited to know more about PBD in English. But before that, I would like to introduce as well our sign language interpreter, who is none other than teacher Amira Huda binti Muhammad Amir from SK Pendidikan Khas Taiping Perak. Hello teacher Amira, how are you? Alright, that's great. Thanks for being with us here today. Now, as you all know as well, classroom-based assessments anywhere for English or for Bahasa Melayu, it's always done on a holistic level. But there are sometimes we are confused with the terms. We hear PBD or LS, and we'd like teacher Jyie to explain more about this. Now, can you please give an introduction on yourself as well, and what is the abbreviation or the meaning behind all these words?
Sure, Syafiqah. Hello everyone. My name is Ching Jyie. I'm from SK Putrajaya Precinct 81. So I'm sure all of you have heard of PBD. Before I explain further, there are some technical terms that I would like to let you know so that you could understand better. It's nothing new to you, but let's look at the first term. So under English, we have something called the curriculum framework. A curriculum framework is the overall content that is taught during the primary school education. It also highlights the roadmap and aspirational targets for pupils in the CEFR. So I have put here the graph. So for pupils in the primary school level, they are expected to achieve at least an A2 level by the end of their year 6 education. Alright, so I've mentioned CEFR. What is CEFR? CEFR is the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. It is an international standard that describes language ability. So in the CEFR, we have got 6 levels from A1 all the way to C2. Now, we are only going to look at A2 because this is the minimum level that is required of pupils to achieve. For the level A2, it is very basic. Pupils are expected to be able to understand and use frequently used expressions in their conversations, simple and direct exchange of information, as well as exchanges involving their background, immediate environment, and matters of immediate interest. Alright? Okay, so next we have got the DSKP. DSKP is short for Document Standard Curriculum dan Pentaksiran, but actually it is a syllabus containing the description of themes, language skills, vocabulary, grammar, and structures used throughout the year. Okay, so we have got that document that we will be referring to as well. We have got the scheme of work. So from the DSKP, we are able to derive the scheme of work, which is a more detailed plan of all the language skills that we are going to cover, all the learning standards and content standards. So let me explain further. What is the content standard or learning standards? We will see LS, which is the learning standard, is a detailed description of what is to be taught in all the skills. So for English, it is not a topical-based subject. It is a modular-based subject. What this means is we have got 5 skills. We have got listening, speaking, reading, writing, and language arts. So these 5 skills are explained in the learning standard. I will show you an example. So for example, for listening, we have got 3 content standards, 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3, and under each content standards there are more detailed learning standards, which is what pupils are expected to be able to do. The learning standards also guide teachers to be able to know what to teach. Alright, so we have got learning standards. To be able to understand the learning standards, we can get the definition from the scheme of work. For example, 1.2.1, understand with support the main idea of longer simple text. When we say longer simple text, what do we mean? We mean text with more than 4 or 5 utterances, or when we say able to understand a wide range of longer supported questions. What does longer supported questions mean? They mean, when we say supported questions, we define it as supporting by mimes, gestures, actions, or even pictures, illustrations. All of these are supported questions. Okay? So that's just an example. Next, we have got performance level, which is something we'll be looking at today. So performance level is the indication of pupils' progress in learning. Altogether, there are 6 performance levels arranged in hierarchy from level 1 until level 6. So we have got the overall description here, but there is a more detailed description that can be found in the DSKP. So in the DSKP, you will see the descriptor for every language skill. This is how we will award our performance level for PBD later on. So now I've mentioned PBD many times. Pentaksiran Bilik Darjah, it just basically means classroom assessment. It is a holistic assessment that focuses on pupils' development. Alright, so I'm going to give you an overall concept of PBD. What is PBD in English? First of all, PBD in English is continuous. It is not something that is done at the end of the school year. It is not something that is done only when we have got summative tests, but it is continuous, which means it happens every day in the classroom. Alright, next, PBD in English is also modular or skill-based. We are testing pupils based on their skills. Listening, speaking, reading, writing, and language arts. We do not assess pupils based on topics in the textbook. Alright, and next, PBD in English is freestanding. What it means is we are not here to compare pupils or put them on a rank. We are not here to say who is first in class or who is not there, you know. So it is not comparative. We focus on can-do statements. Pupils' individual can-do statements and how to get them to that level of being able to achieve what they are supposed to achieve. And last but not least, PBD in English is a very holistic approach. So there are many ways to conduct PBD, which is what I will be explaining later on. It is not a reflection of exam scores. Alright, so just because a child obtains a very low score does not mean the child did not achieve a higher performance level. Yeah, so that's the overall concept. I hope now we get a better picture.
Alright, Ms. Jyie, and that was a bit about the technical terms involved in PBD and also the difference of assessments and previously what has been done in school. So it's important for parents to understand this so they know how their children are being assessed. Now, we're going for a short break first and we'll be right back here on PBD. Alright, right, fellow viewers, you're still tuned in to Didik TV KPM for our PBD or classroom-based assessment slot. Now, for this segment, we are going to be focusing on how to conduct PBD for English, Sekolah Rendah. And to know more about that, we have here our guest, Ms. Jyie. But before that, we do want to know what is the first, perhaps, steps or ways to conduct PBD? What are the steps involved? There are 3, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Jyie, right?
Yes, you're right, Shafika. So earlier I mentioned that there are a few ways to conduct PBD in the classroom. So I'm going to explain what are the 3 ways. So the first one we have is oral. So we can conduct PBD through oral assessments. There are many ways. We can do question and answer. We collect verbal responses. Sometimes we have a project in class and pupils do their storytelling, or it could even be interviews with pupils where as long as we get a verbal response from pupils, that is considered oral assessment. So we collect our data through pupils' oral response. Next, we could also collect data through written responses. So, for example, we could give a task in the classroom and they could answer their activity. It could be multiple choice, it could be structured questions, any written exercises. It could also be essays, projects, folios, even interpreting charts, taking down notes, creating a mind map. All of these are examples of written responses that will help us to gather data to assess our pupils. And last but not least, we could also gather data through observation. Now, what do we observe? Usually, we observe for skills. When pupils display good attitude or good conduct, for example, turn-taking, note-taking, participation in the classroom, hands-on activity, practical things that they do, or any skills that they show, learning, how to learn skills, finding information from text by highlighting. All of this can be done through observation. So overall, we've got 3 ways: oral, written, and observation. Now, I'm going to show you a sample of a lesson and how to apply these 3 ways to conduct PBD. So the sample that I've chosen here is from the scheme of work, the SOW. So it's from the Year 4 textbook. This is from Unit 5, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Unit 5, Eating Right. So this is a listening lesson. I have got 2 learning standards here. The first learning standard is 1.2.5, Understand Longer Supported Questions, and 1.2.2, Understand with Support Specific Information and Details of Longer Simple Text. So now, how do I conduct my lesson to achieve these learning standards, and how do I conduct assessment in the classroom? So I'm going to show you how the textbook looks like. This is how the student's book look like. Okay, so I'm going to show you my first activity. The first activity that I'm going to conduct is I'm going to do an oral assessment. Remember, oral assessments are anyhow I could gather oral responses from pupils. So the first thing I could do is I would probably show pupils pictures to introduce vocabulary. I can show them pictures of sleep, exercise, or drink water. So after I've introduced vocabulary, I can now ask my pupils. I can ask them, for example, Shafika, how many hours do you exercise in a week?
How many hours do... I don't think I understand your question, Ms. Jyie.
How many hours do you exercise in a week?
3?
3 hours or...
3 hours.
3 hours.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So Shafika has answered my question, and from her verbal response, I am able to tell whether or not she could understand longer supported questions. The support that I have given here is through the pictures that I may have shown earlier or through my gestures. Okay, so that is one example of how I gather oral response. Now, I'm going to show you later how do I award the performance level. I've gathered a response, but I will show you how do I put which level is this? Is this level 1, level 3, or level 5? Okay, hold that thought for a moment. I'm going to show you the next method. The next method is through written response. So, for example, because it's a listening lesson, I want my pupils to be able to listen for specific information. So I'm going to play an audio. So my pupils are going to listen to an audio about, let's say, Anna's day. And they are going to have to answer some questions about Anna's day, how healthy she is. Alright? So I'm going to show you examples of instruments you can use for written response. Let's look at this example. So this is an example of how we could carry out a written response. It's a multiple choice questions, but here pupils will have to be able to listen to obtain the answer. I will let pupils know what are they going to listen for. I will read the question with pupils before they listen. And after they have listened, they could answer by circling the correct answer. What isn't a good instrument will be something like this. I shouldn't test pupils based on their prior knowledge, or I shouldn't test pupils based on language content, because they would be able to answer even without listening to the audio text. So for example, if we look at this question, Anna eats vegetables because it gives her, everybody would know that the answer is vitamins, right? It's a prior knowledge question. It's not a listening question. So our instruments have to test what it's supposed to test based on the learning standards. Alright, just take note of that. And this is an instrument we can use. So that's the second one, written. And the third one, the third activity I'm going to conduct is observation. What am I going to observe? So in the third activity, after pupils have listened to an audio text, they have answered the question, now I'm going to ask pupils to do a class survey. I'm going to ask pupils to form two circles, inside and outside circle. I'm sure many teachers are familiar with this. So they will have to take turns. Pupils on the inside circle will get to ask questions to pupils on the outside circle using the language structure that they have been taught. So for example, how many hours did you sleep in a day? How many hours do you watch TV? How many glasses of water do you drink in a day? Something like that. So they'll be able to ask, but here I'm not testing them for the ability of asking. I'm observing for their listening skills. I'm observing whether or not they understand the responses given by their friends. I'm observing whether they are able to understand cues given from their friends, turn taking in listening and answering questions. So these are things that I can observe. So here, through these three activities, I'm able to cover two skills, which is understanding supported longer supported questions, as well as listening for specific information. If pupils are able to understand what their friends tell them, they'll be able to jot down the information given by their friends. So that shows me that pupils are able to achieve the learning standard. So now I can give them a performance level. Alright, so when conducting PBD, something we have to remember is always analyze the learning standard and the descriptors of the performance standard, because the descriptors do not directly mirror the learning standards. So if you have seen earlier, my learning standards, I've got two learning standards there, and my learning standards are shown in descriptor number 2. In the DSKP, I have got 3 descriptors for listening skills, and I have highlighted here. Can you spot the difference between performance level 1 and performance level 2? So the difference here is performance level 1, they demonstrate minimal understanding and they require a lot of support. And performance level 2, some understanding with a lot of support. When I go higher to performance level 3 and 4, I'll be able to see now a pupil who is at performance level 4 will be able to understand and will be able to participate with support, but they will be able to respond to given tasks at times. So for example, earlier when Shafika answered my question and she demonstrated that she didn't really understand my question, so she probably needed some support. She needed some support, which is why I guided her with some gestures. So I could give her a performance level. She needed some support, so I could probably give her a 3 with support. She's still able to answer my question, right? Okay, but someone who is able to participate in an activity, for example, inside and outside circle, they're able to listen and take down notes, they're able to tell me again. So my friend, he sleeps 6 hours in a day. So for someone who is able to participate in given tasks easily, if we look at the keywords that I've highlighted here, that's performance level 6. They're able to respond to given tasks easily. They're able to do it on their own without much guidance from the teacher, although there is still some form of support. So I could award them a TP6 if there's a condition here. Someone with a performance level 6 can also guide others in a given activity, in a given task. So if someone is able to be a mentor to their peers, they deserve a performance level 6. So this is how we award performance levels for our pupils.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jyie, once again. And that was an in-depth explanation on the performance level involved in PBD. And also before that, Ms. Jyie also touched on the 5 skills that require specific assessment, so it doesn't get mixed up between other skills involved. Now we're going for a short break first, and we'll be right back here on PBD Didik TV KPM. Hello everyone, welcome back to PBD Didik TV KPM. Now, all of you may know now the technical terms, the overall concept, the ways to conduct PBD, and also the performance level criteria for now. But we're going to go on how to record the assessment. Once the teachers assess the pupils, how do they record down all these data? Now, we'll pass it on to Ms. Jyie for this.
Thank you, Ms. Shafika. So earlier, we have already collected our data. We have observed, we have gathered oral responses, we have gathered written responses. Now, where do I put this data? So there are many ways, but today I'm only going to show you a few. Okay, so one of the ways that we can record data is using forms or checklists. This is the most common and simple one to do. So I've given you an example. For example, there's a name list in the class, and I can list out the learning standards that I test on a specific day. And I could award pupils a performance level based on what I observe. However, this is very general. There are no further details to it. So if I want further details, there are more ways I could gather data. So next, I could also gather pictures of projects that are done by pupils. So I have a teacher, her name is Miss Sofiato Raunakia. She's from Putrajaya as well. So what she does is, she has a Telegram group where she puts in all her pupils' work in individual channels, and this helps her to record her pupils' progress better. So this is another way we could gather our evidence. This is a very good way as well, so that anytime we need to refer to their performance level, we could just go back to their group projects, especially whenever we have pictures or videos. This is how we could store them. And of course, this is not the only way. We could also gather our data through anecdotes. Anecdotes are basically very simple description of what we write about something that we observe. So one example here, if I've conducted the activity earlier, a listening activity. So this is what I can do. I can say pupils are able to understand information by taking down notes, or he made a mind map, he listened to the text, he showed that he paid attention during the audio text, or he helped his friends. So little details that help me to understand the pupil better. So I usually do this for pupils that I'm tracking their progress more. Yeah, someone who needs a little bit more guidance, this is one good way I could record it. So I've shown you 3 ways, but there are definitely more. You could always refer to the PBD guidebook, but I'm going to address a few frequently asked questions about PBD in English. So usually, I'm sure in the Malaysian classroom, we sometimes have quite a large number of pupils in our class. So if we have got 40 pupils in our class and we couldn't finish assessing them all in one lesson, what do we do? Now we have to understand that we are not there to assess all 40 of them at the same time. So we only pick a few to assess at one particular time. And because English is a a modular subject, so the language skills are repeated. So if I am testing 1.2.2 today, I may also test 1.2.2 the next week or the week after. So I do not have to assess all 40 pupils in one go. Alright, so this answers the second questions as well. What if I have a pupil who is always absent? How do I assess him or her? So we could assess the pupil when the pupil comes back to school, or there are many methods now. We could also provide tasks online. We could also provide modules. But of course, when they come to school, that would be a better assessment. The next frequently asked question is, what if a pupil did not achieve the learning standard during the lesson when I'm assessing? Do I lower down their performance level? Now, we have to understand it is a very holistic assessment, so we do not assess pupils based on one lesson alone. So a teacher gave me this analogy. She told me that someone may know how to drive, but just because someone gets into an accident doesn't mean the person is not a good driver. Yeah, so you have to understand that there are many factors that may contribute to a pupil achieving a learning standard. It could be external factors. Maybe the pupil is not feeling well, the audio isn't clear. So we cannot assess pupils based on one lesson alone. We can mark it there, but we assess them overall based on our professional judgment and what we know about the pupil. Alright, so next, the last question is, I'm having a summative test. Can I use my test scores to award a performance level? Once again, tests, we have to go back to the descriptors in the DSKP, because the test scores, they may test for only certain parts, certain descriptors in the DSKP. It doesn't test everything. So go back to the descriptors. It may be a guide, but test scores cannot be translated into performance levels. Yeah, so that's the overall questions about PBD regarding English.
Right, Ms. Jyie, thank you for that. I hope the FAQs help clear some doubts that parents or teachers have. Now, can we have a brief conclusion for our segment for today?
Sure. So earlier we have learnt about all the technical terms, the documents that we need to refer to as teachers when conducting PBD. We have also learnt how to conduct PBD. What are the ways, what are the instruments we can use to conduct PBD, and how do we map the learning standards to the descriptors? How do we award a performance level, and also how do we record our data? It could be in many ways, yeah.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jyie, for that clarification. I hope the explanation given by Ms. Jyie today gives a better understanding of PBD or classroom-based assessments in English for parents and teachers out there. Do stay tuned for more PBD slots after this. Till then, I'm Shafika Farahin. Till we meet again, Assalamualaikum and Salam Sejahtera. Bye!